Next is winnowing. Winnowing means related to wind. Winnowing is related to wind. Once the wheat has been threshed, the grains should be cleaned off the husk. Husk means outer covering of wheat before grinding into wheat flour. The process of separating the grain from the husk is called winnowing. So winnowing means separation of grains from husk is known as winnowing. It is based on the principle that if one of the components of the mixture is very light in weight, then it can be separated from the mixture by wind, because the outer covering of wheat husk is very light, so it can be separated by wind. In this method, the farmer gently drops the mixture to the ground from a height. The heavier grains are collected at a place while the lighter husk is carried away by the wind. So children, have you seen how your mother removes husk and other impurities from flour? Yes, with the help of a sieve. This is a sieve. Sieving is used to separate substances that are of different sizes. The smaller components of the mixture can pass through the pores of the sieve, whereas bigger components of the mixtures are retained by the sieve. So the bigger components are retained by the sieve, and the smaller parts and the smaller ones can be passed through the pores. For example, wheat flour has some fine powdered wheat as well as some bigger impurities. When this flour is put through a sieve, the fine powder falls through the small holes in the sieve, while the thicker impurities remain in there are too big for these holes, and hence the substance are separated. Pebbles and stones are removed from sand also in this way during the construction. During construction, they remove the pebbles and stones with the help of sieve from sand. Next is magnetic separation. Magnetic separation. Some substances are attracted to a magnet. Such substances are called magnetic substance, such as iron, cobalt, nickel. These are the magnetic substances which are attracted to a magnet. In a mixture where one of the component is a magnetic in nature and the other is non-magnetic, the components can be separated using a magnet. So magnetic substances are easily attracted towards the magnet, so they can be removed from non-magnetic materials. For example, this separation technique can be used to separate recyclable iron waste from a junkyard. Magnets are also used to remove iron splinters from the body of an injured person. Next is separation of solids from liquids. Solid substances may be either soluble or insoluble in a liquid. For example, sugar is soluble in water, whereas a chalk powder is not. Sugar is soluble. Different methods are used for separating soluble and insoluble substances from their respective solutions. First one is separating insoluble solids from liquids. Some solid particles are insoluble in water, such as sand and chalk powder. To separate this type of particle, generally we use the following method: sedimentation, decantation and filtration. So let's see what is sedimentation and decantation. The process of separating insoluble solids which are heavier than water by allowing them to settle down. For example, if we add sand in a water, sand particle settle down at the bottom of the beaker. So it's known as sedimentation. See in the picture also. In this picture, mixture of sand and water. In the second picture, sand settles down as sediments at the bottom of the beaker. So it's known as sedimentation. The sand is also known as sediment, because sand settles down at the bottom of the beaker is known as sediment, and the clear water is known as supernatant. The particles which settle down during sedimentation are called sediments. The upper clear liquid that remains above the sediments is called a supernatant. Decantation following sedimentation. The supernatant is poured out into another container without disturbing the sediment. So you can see here they can pour the clear water in another container without disturbing the sediment. It's known as decantation. This process of pouring out the supernatant slowly into another container in a way that the sediments are not disturbed is known as decantation. For example, muddy water contains heavy particles like sand and soil. Leave this muddy water for some time. After some time, the heavier soil and sand particle settle down, whereas the clear upper water is poured out of the containers, known as decantation. You can see in the picture also. This is a mixture of sand and water. Here sand settles down as sediments. Because sediments means the particle which settles down at the bottom is known as sediments. And the third picture, the clear water is poured into another container without disturbing the sediment. Next is filtration. Filtration is a process by which two substances, an insoluble substance and a liquid, are separated by passing through the mixture through a filtering device. For example, after preparing tea, we filter out the tea leaves by using strainer. Filtration is also done to remove the pulp from fresh juice. During filtration, the insoluble solid is remain in the filtering device, whereas the liquid passes through it. So the insoluble solid remains in this device, and this is the clear water. So this is known as filtrate, and the remaining which is present inside the filtering device is known as residue. The liquid that passes through is called the filtrate, and the unresolved solid particles are called the residue. A filter paper is a special type of paper which has pores that are tiny enough to let only liquid pass through it. If you pass a solution through filter paper, and undissolved solid particles will get left behind on the paper, whereas the liquid will filter through. Next is a process called loading. Sometimes the insoluble particles in the liquid are very fine and cannot be removed by decantation. The particles can be made heavier on that they sediment quickly. The process of sedimentation of insoluble fine particles by making them heavier is called loading. The fine particles are made heavier by using alum. Alum is used to clean the water or purify the water. The alum particles load the fine particles, due to which they form sediment easily, and the liquid can then be cleaned. So they help them to sediment easily. The same process takes place with the dust particles when they are made heavier by raindrops during rain. That is why the sky appears clear after rain. So the dust particles when they are made heavier by raindrops. So raindrops as a loading, it acts as a loading during rain. That is why the sky appears clear after rain.